Hi, everyone. I'm Janice Wang. I am the CEO of Alvanon. Because we don't have very much time today and we've got a lot of speakers for you, I am going to invite you to do something. When you get a chance, go on to www.alvanon.com and you will see our video. It's very self-explanatory of what we do. But basically, we help all brands around the world figure out what their sizes should be and how they should optimize their sizing count. Now, because we get to do these kinds of things in 3D, we get to learn a lot about the newest and best things, and we also get to train a lot of people on digital. On that front page, you will see a Register Now button for a festival of 3D. It's completely democratic, which means that you don't have to pay anything to be there, and you're gonna learn a lot for 3 days about the newest and best about digital. And I think it's very apt because today we're going to be talking about digital marketing. Today's session is split into 2 sections, one with our wonderful overseas participants. I have Fiona Tang from Hawke Media, and we've also got Ching Chang from Klee Klee. And they're, I can see them online. I don't know if you can. But they're going to be speaking quite a lot about what they can see happening in China. And even though we can't cross our border right now, I think they've got some very, very interesting stories to tell. After their session, we'll take a little bit of questions for them, and we'll let them off their Zoom video part, and then we will invite the rest of our speakers on stage, and you can ask them anything you want because I've got a very nice Q&A iPad that I need you to ask me so that I can ask them, okay? So, with no further ado, I'd love to introduce Fiona Tang. She is the head of APAC for Hawke Media. And Fiona, take it away.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's really an honor to be here today to share with you my thoughts on the differences in US and in China when we're talking about marketing. But before we dive into it, I would like to take 2 numbers here. So next slide. We have 5 trillion and 11 trillion here. According to Bureau Statistic of China, the past 5 years, China's online retail store sales grew from 5 trillion to 11 trillion in the past 5 years. And next slide. Even though with the pandemic last year, the overall retail sales dropped by 3.9%, the online retail sale grew by 10.9%. Next slide. And we are actually projecting 14 trillion at the end of this year. With the 14 trillion opportunity here, as the fastest growing company, marketing consultancy in the USA, next slide, we're definitely not gonna miss opportunity, and we're here to expand to APAC, starting with China. We grew from 7 years ago, 7 people, to now closer to 200 employees across the states. And we helped over 2,500 companies establish their brand structure, their brand voice, and really expand in the US. And we take their brand to the next level by helping them from the ground up, from logo creation to brand voice discovery to their marketing channel development execution. So when we're talking about differences when doing marketing in China and the US, there's so many things we can talk about. But today, I really just want to highlight 2 things. Next slide, please. Brand voice versus functionality, social media, and platforms. So next slide. So let's start with brand voice and functionality. Let me give you an example here. Next slide. And next slide. When I mention Reebok, what do you see? Right, there's a lot of shoes, products around Reebok, and then next slide, when you look at their website, you see a lot of products, right, around the brand. And when they are collaborating with influencers like Cardi B, you're still seeing Cardi B holding the shoe, right? So everything is around the product, the functionality, around how it feels, around what it looks like when you're wearing it. And next slide. But when you look at Nike, Next slide, please. When you look at Nike, you see people running on the ground with their product. You see shoes, but you see teamwork. In the next slide. And on their website, you see culture, you see inclusiveness, and you see teamwork all around the product. You do definitely see shoes on their website, but when you're looking at the shoes, how does that make you feel? So next slide. So the question here is, how does these two brands make you feel? If you have thoughts you want to share, feel free to scan the QR code and share with me. But when I see Reebok, I see shoe company. But when I see Nike, I see a brand. And that's what I really want to talk about today. The brand voice, we really need to have it stand out. And when we are expanding to the US, it's different than having just a product. We need to have a voice. We need to have something to speak to them, to really emotionally connect with the consumers. And next slide. So when we are looking at Li-Ning, for example, next slide, they have all the elements that we just mentioned earlier, all the different brand elements. They have culture, inclusiveness, teamwork, the product, and fashion. Every single dot that I mentioned, they have it. But why is Li-Ning not popping in the US? So with that question in mind, let's move on to the next topic, social media and platform. And we're going to circle back to this question later in the presentation. So next slide, when we're looking at social media is being used so differently, night and day, in China and in the US. So in China, next slide, please. We use social media throughout our day, throughout the journey from when we wake up 6 a.m. to when we go to sleep at 12 midnight. And you can see WeChat is very, very being highly utilized in China. People make purchases, they chat with friends, connect with friends, or share their moments, socialize with people. And ever since the beginning of the internet, social media has been utilized by business owners and being very commercialized. So customers in China are very trained and very well trained on using their social media platform to make a purchase. And when we are looking at, next slide, please, the social media application in the US is pretty much scattered around. There's really no exact time or date or location that you will be using whichever application. But in China, you definitely see that in your day-to-day life. So that's the differences, right? In the US, we use social media for entertainment, whereas in China, we use social media in our day-to-day. We need it to function. So that kind of goes back to functionality and brand voice. In China, the businesses and the product and your application, social media, everything is focusing on your functionality. How can we use it? Whereas in the US, we focus more about the connection. And next slide, please. And that shows in the platforms. So next slide, please. When you see on the left-hand side, we see a lot of Chinese social media landscape here. And everything, all the platform here are being used by business owners to sell their product, promote their brand. Whereas on the right-hand side, you can see the US platforms are using to build a community to really connect with their consumer, to convey the message about their mission, vision for the company. And next slide, please. So we have two examples here. One is Jingdong and Taobao. Here's the two screenshots. So when you're coming into China, doing businesses in China, selling your product, promote your brand, you really need to register into either Jingdong or Taobao, one of the platforms, to really get your brand out there. Because people in China, we trust more about the platform than the brand. So we trust Jingdong, we trust Taobao. They have the logistic, they have everything figured out. And when we buy from Jingdong or Taobao, we know it's going to get here on time. And we know it's the brand that we want. And people use the platform just for leisure. And there's really, when comparing with the US, next slide, please. When you look at Amazon, you only see a few products here. Because people only go on Amazon or Google when they need something. It's more intent-based. People don't go on in Google or Instagram, Google or Amazon just to look at it. So the consumer behaviors are being trained very differently in China and in the US. And when you look at the next slide, please. So when we establish the fundamental, on the left-hand side, you see a screenshot of Taobao. So in Taobao, you see the code there. And it's a never-ending scrolling. You can see a coat here and there, but on Amazon, you can see it only took me 5 seconds, and I'm at the end of it. So next slide, please. So that kind of brings an opportunity, but also a problem for business owners to conquer. When you're in China, when you see this coat, and when the customer is not clicking it, putting in the shopping cart or converting, buying it, it's one and done deal. When they're scrolling down, you kind of miss the opportunity. Whereas in the US, it takes at least 12 touch points for window shopping people to really convert into a buying customer. Because it takes longer when comparing with the Chinese businesses, so brand voice and brand recognition is very, very important in the US. So next slide, please. We really believe your brand is the single most important investment that you can make in your business. So if everything in your brand is consistent throughout, when the consumer in the US are hitting those 12 touch points, they are going to convert eventually. Whereas in the US, it's very fast paced. If you don't get it, then you're done. Moving on to the next, right? So next slide, please. So when we are looking at brand voice, functionality, social media, and platforms, in China, you can grow your brand with all the elements, but you can still survive without the value, tagline, tone, website. But in the US, it will be a very different story. You need to have the logo, you need to have the tagline, vision, mission, and everything in order to be successful in the US. So with all that in mind, let's circle back to the conversation, the question earlier, and next slide, please. When we're looking at Li-Ning, this company, they have everything on their website. They have the teamwork, they have fashion, they have product, they have culture, inclusiveness, everything. But next slide, please. When you're looking at their social media, everything is about their product. I don't see anything that's connecting with their customer to relate to them or have them feel something. So with that in mind, let's move on to the next one. With that in mind, when looking into the future, I definitely see the trend in the US. More Chinese brands are going to develop more emotional set of things when they're expanding to the US. And when US companies, when they're expanding to China, they are going to utilize more about the platform. But more importantly, I do see with everything being so fast-paced in China, the Chinese companies are developing brands in China, where when I go to retail store, go to the malls, I do see brands here and there are slowing down a little bit. And in the US, or in the Western culture, Western countries, people are utilizing the technologies with TikTok, the live streaming shopping experience, and people are speeding up a little bit. So that's what thoughts that you want to share or connect, or if you have a brand that are going into US, that you are trying to figure out a way to build the brand. Let's connect. Happy to share thoughts and continue the conversation from there. And thank you for having me here today.
Thank you so much, Fiona. And on that note about slowing down, I'm so excited to present Ms. Ching Chang. Ching is the brand manager of Klee Klee. Am I doing this right? Her brand actually is a palm that goes like this. And I'll let her explain more about exactly what they're doing in this space. Ching, take it away.
Hello, everyone. My name is Qing, and I'm from Klee Klee, a sustainable fashion brand based in China, Shanghai. And as Janice just pointed out, we have our logo, which is a palm that means slow down in the sign language. And our name, Klee Klee, is actually taken from spoken Tibetan, which means slow down. And this is the model that we sort of started out as a brand, and we are still trying to follow in our day-to-day practice. Next slide. So our story started in 2008. Back then, we are still we started as a collection under the fashion label Goxip, which is a Shanghai-based company. And the company started in 2002 as a design label. So between 2002 and 2008, the founders of the company realized that fashion is creating a lot of waste and pollution, and that is how they started to think if it is possible to create a line that has more sustainable elements. So we started as a teeny tiny collection under Zigzag, and between 2008 and 2016, we were learning about a more sustainable fashion supply chain, and we're growing actually with the supply chain here in China. Next slide. So in these 8 years, we summarized our principles according to which we produce our clothes. And the 3 principles are eco-friendly material, which we use throughout all the pieces we make, and eco-friendly processing. We use that through different collections that we have. And we realized that we do have social responsibility to fulfill, and we have products developed around that theme. Next slide. So on every piece of Klee Klee clothing, you can see a label that actually highlights which principle that this particular piece of clothes abide by. Next slide. So today, these are most of the materials, eco-friendly materials that we have developed that we can realize in the China market. And these are some of the processing, like eco-friendly processing that we have developed together with our suppliers. Next slide. So from 2016 to now, we are a sustainable brand with a focus on sustainable fashion and other aspects of sustainable lifestyle. Next slide. And from here on, I will show you some of the photos from our previous campaigns. So these are some of the clothes that we have developed. Also, all the models that we are using are our friends. We do not use professional models. We want to portray how normal people dress in our clothes. Next slide. Next slide. You can go in a row. So some of these models are actually architects or suppliers we work with. Like this, in this photo, Liu Li, she is the owner of a biodynamic farm producing organic silk based in Sichuan. Next slide. This is our consultant who specializes in textile development. And this is our friend who works with the media. And in addition to women's wear that we've been producing, we also have menswear collection. Next slide. Next slide. And this is a farm that we work with Yunnan. He actually owned the farm, and we helped him to branch out his business to Shanghai. Next slide. We also have a homeware collection that we developed together with a woman in Yunnan. Next slide. So now we are still a part of the Zigzag company, and our products are held at about 120 stores, Zigzag stores all across China. And next slide. These are some photos from the Zigzag shops of Klee Klee in the Zigzag shops. Next slide. And now we also have 2 standalone shops. This is the shop we have in Beijing, Sanlitun. It holds more of our sustainable denim products. Next slide. And this is our shop in Shanghai. And we actually named this shop Klee Klee and Friends, because with this shop, we're not only using it as a touch point with our customers, we also hope that it becomes a place that holds the content we want to create around sustainable lifestyle. Next slide. So these are some of the photos from the shop. Next slide. So how we market our brand, we are actually not that big on social media. One reason is that our price point is between 600 RMB to maybe 8,000 RMB. So it is not super effective for us to use digital channels to push sales. Instead, we use digital channels as communication channels to push out our contents, especially the contents that we have in the shop. So we developed this shop as a space where we collaborate and connect with our friends with authenticity. Next slide. So in this Shanghai shop, we have pop-ups and exhibitions almost every month. For example, this exhibition you see now is a collaboration with our friend in Yunnan. Her name is Xiao Li, and she's sort of like a hunter-gatherer, and she goes into deep mountains to find natural products like these mushrooms and walnuts. And we are a point of contact for her in Shanghai, where she can develop her customers here. Next slide. These are photos from her farm in Dali, and it is and as we connect with the market in Shanghai, we also recommend her farm to our customers in Yunnan for people to experience a more natural way of life there. Next slide. And this is an exhibition we developed together with the department's China partner, Bishan Gongxiao. They have a shop based in Huangshan, but in a very village-like area. So we brought their products in Shanghai, and we kind of learned about the idea of long life design from them, which also enriched our brand. Next slide. These are some photos from the exhibitions. Next slide. This is also a pop-up that we do every year at the end of the year. The brand is called Norha, and they are a yak atelier based on the Tibetan plateau. So they basically started from scratch there as a very tiny atelier, and now they hire 100 local women and local men to produce their yak wool products. Next slide. These are photos from their studio in Qinghai. Next slide. We also have a collection of photography exhibitions. So we work with artists to present their works related to the nature, and we call this collection Plant Portraits. Next slide. These are some photos from the shop of the exhibitions. Next slide. And we also have this homework collection we call Nade, which is a name developed from Dulong language, a minority group language in Yunnan, and we work with local women to weave hand-woven fabrics and make them into products. Next slide. These are the women that we work with. Next slide. And these are photos from exhibitions of the products in our shop. Next slide. So with Klee Klee and friends, we think it more as a shop. It is a shop and it is a content hub, and it connects people. As you see, I have put together a lot of faces in this presentation. A lot of it is a normal way to use work with KOLs or influencers in China market, but we actually don't work with paid KOLs. We see everyone we work with, from our models to our collaborators to photographers, as influencers. And we actually develop long and authentic relationships with them, and they in turn help us promote our products or this more sustainable lifestyle that we want to let more people know. Next slide. So I have only, I took a few screenshots from some of the contents that they put up. So everything they put up are kind of organic. We never really asked them, say, if you can promote these products for us. So they really actually buy our products and they post for free for us. For example, on the left, you can see she is actually, her name is Chao Man. She's actually a novelist. And she has over 1 million followers on Weibo, and she only just started developing her influence on Xiaohongshu, and she posted about our denim collection. And then in the middle is Da Tao, who modeled for us and who works in the media, and she like voluntarily posts for us. And then on the right is a repost from Lu Shang, who was one of our one of the artists that we worked with. So we have all these micronodes. We connect all these micronodes together to form our brand influence through the social channels. So this is my introduction to the brand. Please ask us any questions if you have.
There's a great difference between what we see, you know, for instance, from the leaning kind of website or not website, the Taobao page versus, you know, something like Klee Klee. It's completely different, and yet both of these things are kind of in its different stages of growth inside kind of the Chinese e-commerce market. And Fiona, what do you? I know you've got some questions for Ching.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, when I saw the Sunli twin picture, I was in Beijing 3 days ago, and I actually walked past by that store. So my question is, when developing content for your brand, what are the strategies that you use to really convey slow down message when developing content? I know you mentioned key influencer, key opinion leaders within the customer base, but how do you really utilize it, and what's your strategy when developing that content to really stand out from the crowd?
So we try to see everything ourselves. For example, when we are working with our suppliers, we really try to see like the actual cotton field that this organic cotton comes from. And we are, like, our designers are always visiting the factories that we work with. So a lot of the content we put on our WeChat accounts are actually taken from these visits. When we work with a denim like wash company, we want to see in the factory actually when they will have the water processed, and then the water was actually very clean when they release it from the factory. So we really try to see everything ourselves. Although we have a very complicated supply chain, but we still try to visit everyone and see the farm, see the dynamic farm and how the silk is grown there. So this is our approach, and it is very low efficient, I would say. But from there, we know that everyone we work with are actually authentic, as we hope we ourselves are. So we are very slowly develop these contents, but when you look back after a few years, everything is solid, and so we develop our contents from there. I hope this answers your question. We don't really have a strategy, I think. We just try to be authentic.
But I think a lot of the authenticity really kind of comes through, you know. And if you look at Klee Klee as a brand, right, the question was, we would see some of these kinds of things in a very, it has a very Scandinavian feel, you know, when I saw it. It's a really, it's very, it stands apart from the crowd, a very crowded marketplace. but they probably can do it because of the price point in which you've got. So, you know, Fiona, if you were advising, you know, Klee Klee of what to do, for instance, what would some of your strategies be?
Yeah. So if I were to give my 2 cents here, I would really to just stay on court and be authentic and follow the strategy that you currently have, even though you don't think you have a solid strategy. But I really like what you have here. And because I believe the trend is definitely going to slow down a little bit in China, and people, because of the pandemic, people are being more mindful when they are making purchases. So I think being authentic and really speak to your customer is really going to make an impact in the long road.
Thank you so much to both Fiona and Ching. If we can just give them a round of applause. Thank you for joining us. And now we're going to actually let them go and invite the rest of my wonderful panel up. Today we're so honored to have Miss Adelene Chan, who's a key manager for Google. Miss Christine Chow, co-founder and creative director of Tove and Libra. Miss Veronica Chow, director of novel fashion investments and founder of CEO of Everybody and Everyone. And Giovanni Musillo, general manager of Hong Kong and APAC for Goxip. So how this is going to work is that everybody's going to give you a little bit of a introduction about what they do and what they have to say, and what the key messages have to be. And then we're going to have a little bit of a discussion, and you're going to give me questions because, you know, sitting on the stage up here, it's kind of lonely for like that half hour, even though we've got 2 Zoom people. So, Miss Adelene, please take it away.
Thank you, Janice. Hi, everybody. My name is Adelene. I'm an account manager at Google, taking care of majority of fashion vertical clients. So it's really honored for me to be here today. Thank you for inviting me. I guess for today, I wanted to, again, thank the previous 2 speakers, Fiona and Ching, for talking a little bit about the China landscape. Coming from Google, I guess I'll address a little bit of the rest of the world, being that, you know, Google works that way. So one of the things I think Fiona addressed is the user journey differences between, I guess, in China with the social landscape of one-stop shop, and also in the rest of the world where the user journey is more and more convoluted. I want to take a little look at the last 2 decades in terms of trends. I think what I want to address here is people's consumer expectations, which are continually rising. Because of the abundance of choice, right? Everything is available with the click of a button online. You can buy it, you can get it, it's quick, it's easy. And with that, what actually happens is that we're bringing forth a more and more convoluted user journey. In the past 2 decades, I think in terms of mass fashion, we've seen the rise of fast fashion, where people's expectations are more around choice, around stylishness, right? Moving forward, then we see like the emergence of like street fashion, say, where people want kind of more comfort and quality, and then into like athleisure, right? Like I cannot leave home without being comfortable these days, as well as looking good. And then closer to, you know, what we're talking about today in terms of sustainable fashion, we really see brands like, for example, Nike and even like homegrown brands that are creating, I guess, shoes and materials, using materials that are recyclable. Everyone and everybody uses recyclable materials as well. So I think in terms of this kind of trend forward, people's expectations have really grown. Not only do they want style, they want choice, they want comfort, and they want quality, and they also want to feel good about the choices they make every day and what they wear every day. I guess that's sort of the qualitative trend that we're seeing in the last 2 decades. In terms of, you know, coming from Google and having this data-backed mindset, we really want to see in terms of the search trends, how does that play out? I think one of the key things that we see in the last 15 to 20 years is that searches for the cheapest sort of products have gone down, right? On the other hand, searches for the best products have gone up. And they intersect around, in this point, in 2009 or 2010 approximately, where basically after 2010 and this point, everybody cares more about the quality of their products than whether or not it's the cheapest products. With this higher expectation, the consumer journey has changed, and it's no longer as simple and as linear as awareness, consideration, and then purchase and loyalty, right? In life and in fashion, I think loyalty has become a little bit harder to come by, right? And there's so much choice. I'm gonna take an analogy of dating here, right? With all of these choices and the Tinder profiles and everybody swiping through, what we're actually seeing is that after people discover a brand, they're in a constant state of exploration and evaluation, kind of in this messy middle where they're constantly jumping from brand to brand to brand, thinking of whether this is better, that product is better. They discover a new brand, and then they do more research on it before they're finally able to convert and make that purchase, right? With this sort of landscape, what it means for us as brands and as advertisers are two biggest impacts, I would say. The first is, with very unpredictable consumer journeys, like what do we do? What can we do? How do we know how to target them, right? The answer is simple, it's automation. Humans' computing power will never be able to compete with a computer with machine learning. By being able to sort of use automation to see how people's convoluted user journey actually move from point to point, we're able to analyze that data, train the machine, and use artificial intelligence to accurately target your audience, and sort of go from targeting them in a spray and pray methodology to a little bit more of a targeted, accurate, efficient sort of advertising. So with that, that allows you to be able to, even in such a complex environment, target your audience at the right time, at the right place, and to the right people, which is, I guess, the core tenet of marketing in the end of the day. Another big impact with this convoluted user journey, and I'm gonna pause here right now, actually, if that's okay, and ask everybody here on stage to raise your hand if you have ever searched for something, or in the last month, searched for something on google.com. I know I have.
Yeah.
Everybody. All right, cool. How about on youtube.com? Oh, wow, everybody. Okay. Well, we're seeing a higher distribution than I actually anticipated. Actually, what we're seeing across Google in terms of the data sets is that youtube.com is sort of the unloved child. People go immediately and they think of google.com as a place where people search and do research and consideration for products and do reviews and things like that. But what's happening, especially for the generation of digital natives who are sort of like Gen Z and below, so people born after 1996 or 97, I think, they will actually go straight to youtube.com to do their searches instead of going to google.com. Zooming out a little bit more, actually, there's the millennials, there's the Gen Xers, there's the boomers. They're still kind of on google.com, but toggling between google.com and youtube.com. So with that, I think understanding the rise of social commerce, as Fiona and Ching mentioned earlier, understanding that need for the authentic voice. So with the rise of the hashtags, get ready with me, shopping haul reviews, these are the styles I choose. Actually, people are getting more and more educated using visual platforms and sort of understanding that, hey, on these visual platforms, people are speaking to me in their own voice. They're not pushing just a sort of advertising brand message, right? They're speaking directly to me with an authentic voice about something they truly believe in, which in turn allows your consumers to be more engaged and more likely to then convert on your brand and believe you guys, to be able to earn that loyalty rather than it just being given to you. Because again, going back to my point, loyalty is hard these days. So if you're gonna take anything away from everything I said today, there are three things. One, user journey is super complex and more complicated nowadays. Two, with this unpredictable user journey, we really need to start with automation and be able to target these people. And three, sort of with youtube.com being such a rise and the Gen Zs being your major purchasing power group coming up, it's really important to really focus not just on google.com, but on youtube.com, where we have 2 billion monthly active users, for you to target, educate, and sort of capture that audience group and be top of mind before they're able to make that purchase decision.
Thank you, Adelene. from that, actually, previously we were talking a little bit also about how people also use Google Maps, right, to hyperlocalize and kind of hone into a store after they've done the search. And with that, actually, for the non-Gen Z of us who are in the room, like Christine and I were talking a little bit about her brand and how, being identifiable on Google and then driving people into your store. And Christine, do you want to talk a little bit about your journey of having a sustainable brand and what you do?
Should I start with the whole presentation?
Sure.
Or?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So thank you. I'm from Tove Libra. We're a local sustainable women's wear brand. And that means we make and sell clothing in a way that we believe is better for people and planet. So that obviously sounds like it should be a win-win proposition for everyone, right? But it actually can be a kind of not as easy a sell as you might think. So it's actually much easier for big companies to adopt a part of the sustainability message and then adopt that in a part of their operations because they can still continue to produce in large quantities at low prices, and they have a huge marketing budget to really sell anything they want anyway. So as a small brand with a smaller budget that consumers are not as familiar with, what that means is we don't get as many shots at our audience's time. So we have to be really super clear in our messaging and really hone in on who our audience is. So in terms of digital marketing, what we found is there's a lot of how-tos out there, but it's mainly targeted at the younger consumers. And I mean, I see that most of you in this hall is probably similar to myself and our audience. We're targeting professional women who are age 25-year-old and above. And we found that we really had to kind of create our own playbook because a lot of the support out there for digital marketing does not really break it down by product categories or by audience demographics. So I would say like in terms of taking on digital marketing by yourself, like if you can't afford Hawke Media, for example, then don't be afraid to buck conventional wisdom. For example, I would have maybe, where would I show? So for example, at one point, we wanted to strengthen our positioning as technical experts creating quality clothing. So I designed a series of, these are I think 3 out of about 9 pages on our take on sustainable fabrics. My much younger social media manager did not like these at all and suggested cutting down the content by 60% because she felt that no one wants to read this. But I felt that IG Stories was just a great testing ground anyway because it only lasts a day, right? So I told her, let's just try it. So we put it out there and, it was successful. People read through at a very high rate, like all the pages, and we got great engagement. And of course, so it turns out that our audience is patient and not afraid to read. And this is not your typical social media user profile, right? But this is your audience, so you need to engage with that. And so on top of this, we've also found that an online to offline strategy was important. I think many of you who have been working with e-commerce in Hong Kong would have found that the audience here is maybe not as tech savvy as they might be in other countries. So especially for the Hong Kong audience, and I think when your products are over a certain price point, it's important to have an online to offline strategy. So one interesting thing I talked to Janice about, for example, was that we were running Facebook ads last year, and the most useful series of ads with the highest conversion that we found really was when we discovered we could add at the end of the Facebook ad a map to pinpoint your closest physical location for the audience. And what I found was really interesting, and this might be a different perspective from Adelene's automation viewpoint, but we had customers coming into our shop who had never ever clicked on our ad, did not engage with our ads at all, but told us they noted the ad, went straight to the website to look through all the products, refused to order online even though we offered free delivery, and they would come to our shop with a wish list in the head of what they want to try on and touch and feel before they converted. So it's really interesting to us to take note of this group because you would never know of their existence online because they wouldn't click on your ad, they never clicked like, they never said anything. But this is just how I think the older audience might react and relate to digital media. I think as a small brand, going back to having a smaller marketing budget, another useful way to make use of that is to collaborate with other small brands and amplify each other's voices. So these are some of the other local creative businesses that we have collaborated with this year. We partner with each other to do giveaways, and all the wonderful ladies here, for example, are modeling our clothing. So we can then use this content for co-promotions and digital giveaways. And of course, in general, I think this is the kind of authentic content that's really important for an independent brand. And especially because as an independent and small brand, your company and your business often becomes intertwined with who you are as a founder. And so all these founders aligning with each other, it really says something that the audience can usually relate to. And if the audience trusts you as a person, they will trust your brand. So, at the very least, I felt that this was a really great way for building up the local and sustainable brands community in Hong Kong. And it's really only by amplifying each other that we can make the consumers listen.
Thank you very much, Christine. And so on to a little bit larger brand, Veronica, you've got a couple of brands underneath your huge portfolio. How do you see, we've talked a little bit about something like Klee Klee or, like Tove Libra. How do you see your brands in this kind of sustainable kind of ecosystem?
Yeah, should I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Background, and I cover a range of brands. I do have a startup brand as well. So I kind of grew up in the fashion industry with my grandfather with knitwear and denim factories, and going to these factories, I was saying, what is this smell? What is this dust? Where is this colored water going? And asking these questions about sustainability. And back then it was just the way things were. And now being in sustainability for a while, these are the same questions that we're asking. My first business was bringing mass market American brands to China. We launched 12 brands in the China market, opening over 1,000 stores. And at that time, it was more physical locations, but working with brands of all different price points and having different experiences. But a big part of that time in China, this was pre-2015, it was really just retail locations versus what we're talking about today in digital media. So that business has been sold, but then now I'm involved mainly in two brands. One of them is Karl Lagerfeld, which I have the bag here. I have Karl with me all the time. But this brand is mainly based out of Europe, and we're really a global business. And the other brand is a complete startup called Everybody and Everyone, which I launched November 2019. It's an eco-innovative, size-inclusive women's wear brand based out in New York, mainly for the US market. And I think to the point of digital marketing that we're all talking about, the two brands have quite a different strategy. One being Karl Lagerfeld, we started with a brand name or a person at that time who was quite famous, so we were very lucky to be able to have lots of collaborations and lots of partnerships. Also some licensing as well, but we've collaborated with cosmetic companies, we've collaborated with shoe companies, we've collaborated with different designers and artists, and that has been a great excitement for the brand to get it out. I think one thing with the brand recently, which I'm super excited about on the sustainability side, is that we worked with a model activist called Amber Valletta and launched a line of sustainable bags. And one of the fabrics, it's new innovation that we use. This is not leather, this is cactus leather. And cactus plants are grown in a regenerative agriculture method. You don't have to take the roots out, and you can just cut parts of the plants out to make this leather, which is a completely new innovation. And what we've learned from that is we found that our customer actually really was excited about the sustainability side of things. And just launching this, it sold out very, very quickly, and sometimes even worked better than some of the traditional type of collaboration or fashion-driven collaboration that we've done in the past couple of years. And so we're definitely doing more sustainability-focused collections. The whole company itself, we've also embarked on a journey to change our ways and become more sustainable. But yeah, I think working with someone like Amber Valletta, who is a famous model and an activist, has really helped us reach new customers as well. Of course, as a brand, we have a 360 type of marketing plan with for all the traditional methods and all the digital ways. And through COVID with Karl Lagerfeld, we were very nervous when COVID first hit because we had a lot of retail footprint. And as we know, and still sometimes some of the stores have to be closed, but digital marketing became much more important in the past year and a half. And also with our social media team, there has been a lot of new excitement in terms of, it could be live streaming. During COVID, there was live DJ playing on our Instagram and lots of different activations that way. We also have, we're trying to be cutting edge and exciting. So we have an NFT launch coming tomorrow on Karl Lagerfeld's birthday. So if you guys want to check out, it's launching tomorrow. I'm quite excited. It's also, as a brand, it's fun to engage in different things and to have, to be on the front lines of doing, trying new things. At the same time, then I also have Everybody and Everyone, which is a completely new brand, launched literally when COVID hit Asia. And for this brand, I really wanted to make sure we were extremely sustainable. So, the typical labels, packaging, hang tags, of course, our clothing material, all those are sustainable. But we also think about where the raw material is, where the factory fabric mills are, and also where the clothing are produced, and try to have that as close as possible together, not having parts of the product shipped around the globe in order to make an item. Even our small little shoulder pad and our blazers are sustainable. So we always make that choice along the way. And the trousers the leggings I'm wearing today is made from fermented sugar from agricultural waste. The silk shirt I'm wearing is from regenerative agricultural methods, where when these regenerative farms are it's a very important concept for our world. It's one of the ways to solve our climate crisis, but it really helps capture carbon dioxide back into the soil. So we want that regenerative agriculture method for both food and also for clothing, whether it's silk or cotton or hemp or linen, anything that's grown from the ground, we should definitely push for regenerative agriculture. But also for the brand, we've deliberately designed the products to be multifunctional and have many different ways to wear. So one of our best-selling pants, again, made from this fabric, it's adjustable at the length and adjustable at the waist. So if you're like me, fluctuate month to month in size, you just adjust the waist and you can keep wearing those pants, or even when we wear high heels or flats, you can also adjust. So I think these are some of our, we also have a turtleneck sweater where the neck part can come off. So you have one item, two styles, it's better for your wallet and better for the planet. And I think all these elements that we add to the brand is important tools for our brand to communicate. And every time we're on social media, we're there telling people, educating people, not just on the sustainable things, not just on the sustainable fabrics, but also, hey, think about wearing an item in more ways so that you don't have to buy so much, so that the item is worth more because you're wearing it more. I think in the design of my brand, I also said, if you want to do, I'm not doing any party dresses or anything like that, because for those, go rent, go buy secondhand, go buy vintage. My earrings are vintage. There's certain things you can do that, but as a brand, we want to make things that are staples in your closet. But I think in the whole digital marketing world, in our Instagram and all that, we try to do a lot of education, and I think that's one of the good things about doing a brand is it's not just pure marketing. I think there's an education piece, and people learn about how to live more sustainably, and that trickles into different parts of our lives. Last point on my brand is that we're also size inclusive. So we do US size 00 until US size 24. And for the launch of our brand, we had our e-commerce models and our campaign models put together. We had at least 10 different women of different body sizes, different colors, and modeling our products. And that's one of the important things about inclusivity and being any brand out there. I think a lot of us in here grew up in the world where models were only size 0 or size 2, a certain height. And I think, that has dramatically changed in fashion. So we do want to have more representation in the fashion industry and in other places. And yeah, the more images we put out there, the more social media posts we do, that's what we're changing the world, all of us together. Yeah.
And it's a wonderful thing that you talk about the education of this. I think the imagery is so important, right? Actually, we kept telling for years to our clients that size 14 or 16 is going to be your medium size, but nobody really would listen, especially in Middle America. But now it seems much more acceptable that that actually happens. But really, it depends on where you're really targeted at. Which hyper kind of local market you're going to. So we have questions. Okay. And actually, this is to everybody, because it seems like digital marketing is just encouraging consumerism, which I guess we do encourage consumerism, which could be argued that goes against sustainability. So how can we use digital marketing to promote sustainable products and practices, especially to new, unaware consumers? Does anyone want to take that?
No, marketing, of course, the point of marketing was created to sell things, but, I do believe that, we hope that the marketing dollars goes to brands that are sustainable, and so that people make better choices and people get more informed and educated to make better choices. I'm a believer that we need money and we need investment into innovation and technology so that we can continue to live a convenient and nice lifestyle without harming the planet. Like, my vision, my grand plan, or my hope for the future is that, we might have something like a plastic bottle, but it's not made from plastic that is harmful to the planet, because it is convenient, it is helpful to our lives. And I think with material science, that's where we're getting to. So yes, if we use marketing to get more dollars to these businesses that are trying to do good, I think it's not too bad.
Just adding to that, because I'm sure this is something we've asked ourselves as product makers in general, so even sustainable product makers. But the fact is, I think this is not about marketing, right? The fact that we choose to put new products out there, but we're putting sustainable products, that's because for us at least, we believe sustainability is quite multifaceted. It's not just eco-friendly, right? There's also the people part of it, and that means people has jobs. What are people in the fashion industry supposed to do if you believe that no one should sell any fashion products? So what we really hope as a brand is we hope that we're, hopefully, eventually taking business from big brands who are not producing in ethical or sustainable ways. It's not that we're trying to create more product demand in general. We're hoping to substitute the products of the old with, I think, products that are more innovative and more sustainable, and hopefully in that way, along the way, educate more consumers, as Veronica says.
I think just to add on to that as well, coming back to the consumer angle, there is a demand for this kind of product, for sustainability, for environment. I think in the last, 3 months, the searches for sustainability has risen 30%. For the environment on Google has risen 70%. So people are searching for ways to be able to, contribute to the world and be more conscious and make these decisions. But it's about sort of educating them on how they can do that and presenting them with options so you're findable and people can make that decision because they know about it.
So actually, going further on that question, there was actually a direct question for Giovanni. Do you actually target influencers in specific silos, like in sustainability? Do you target? Do you have a couple of influencers that do that?
Yeah, definitely. We have to, and I think it's a good thing. I mean, just going back a little bit on the topic earlier is about consciousness, and I think we are in an era where most people woke up finally, and as you can see with electric cars and also less consumption of meat, or the world is waking up, and so we need to do it as well as the businesses. And one of the things, obviously, is to cater for these needs. There is definitely a demand for sustainability, and so as businesses, we need to also cater for this audience that I think is growing substantially. So to answer the question, yes, we do that, because first of all, it's right to do so, and secondly, because also there is a demand these days.
One of the questions that actually has come through is that, do you use 3D or virtual samples as part of your digital campaigns, meaning that less physical samples and be more 3D? Actually, I know that Karl Lagerfeld is doing that, funnily enough, just because actually we work with them. So,
you should be answering this question.
So actually, I'll just take this question actually, because I think a lot of brands are realizing that they actually have to go 3D and they have to go into virtual sampling. The biggest issue that we have, however, is that we actually don't have enough skilled people to do the work. So if any of you have a brand, or you have people who want to be designers, or you are designers, for all of you in the online audience as well, take a 3D course. We actually really need them, because everybody would love to do virtual sampling, but we just don't have enough people. That's the first thing. But I mean, the second thing is that we can take all of these virtual samples and do what actually Karl Lagerfeld brand is dropping tomorrow, right? An NFT. We are seeing a lot of brands actually take that route into creating digital fashion. And one of the best speakers on this her name is Daniela Loftus, and she does This Outfit Does Not Exist. She literally, she has these like kind of snap filters that snap onto you when you're taking on when you take a photo of yourself. And so it's a really interesting new method of going about doing fashion. But still, I'm of that generation that wants to go and try something on and feel it and do that. So for a smaller brand like Tove Libra, how do we avoid greenwashing? This is what it says here. How much data should the brand disclose on sustainable processes, for instance?
Well, I don't feel necessarily, I think I maybe didn't explain before, but similar to Veronica and Janice, I also come from a family heritage of manufacturing, and also still run our manufacturing business with our own factory and people to care for. So for me, I feel like greenwashing isn't about providing more data necessarily, because I mean, it would just bore you to death, to be honest, right? And I mean, the truth is, I just feel most of the photos that are posted about our factories, I mean, I just don't think most of them are real, and that's my personal opinion, okay, having seen many factories. So I think it's just about being as real and honest as you can be about your processes and what would matter to consumers. We don't try to promise the moon. We do what we can in the ways that we can, in a way that we believe in. We believe in principles, and for us, that's being principled is part of being sustainable.
So, when we're talking about this greenwashing thing, right? We the fact of the matter, a lot of the information that is out there, I think one of the biggest problems with the sustainable fashion is that we actually had to, there was a lot of misinformation out there about a lot of stuff, actually. But there is the question actually that's come through is like, what is that formula, right? How do you cost, balance out, maybe actually I'm reading this wrong, sorry. What is the formula to make a balance for cost and benefit under these kinds of interactive marketing strategies? Would Goxip or?
Yeah, sure. I can take this one. So there is always a ramp-up phase for whatever you do. So unless there is a big bang approach, which is also something possible as well, but most brands do not have the capabilities these days to go for a big bang approach. The big bang approach is where all channels, you invest a ton of budget and you go for it. Now, these days, obviously, everyone is very much cautious about how do we run our campaigns, how do we invest our budgets, especially because back in the days, you would have a yearly budget. Brands would have a yearly budget. These days, it's perhaps quarterly or maybe monthly. So how do we adjust to that? We adjusted by talking and customizing the way we work with those brands. But then my suggestion is definitely to try several strategies and see what sticks. My personal opinion on this. But the thing is that sometimes, though, we're not persistent enough. Because many brands, and this is something that I've seen in the past across all my experience, is that many brands, they start with a project, with a trial on something, and then too soon they give up, too soon. Like, just be brave to go all the way till a point where you have already fixed in your mind, all right, I'm going to get here, and here I evaluate. Many brands, they start, but then they just give up too early. So my suggestion is to carefully evaluate till what point you want to push your marketing campaigns. So in my opinion, it's great to try and test, but not to give up too early, which is usually a mistake that I see.
Yeah, I mean, I think I actually want to add to that a little bit. Working with a variety of clients, we really see a lot of clients give up really soon. And they're like, this doesn't work. We're going to cut it off our media plan completely. But I think the process is actually test and learn. With data, we never have a foregone conclusion in the beginning. It's a scientific methodology. You're going forth with a hypothesis, then you want to test it and see what the data then comes back to tell you. So it's kind of about almost data creation, right? Setting up your hypothesis to test for an answer, to get an answer to your question in the end of the day. So, I mean, this comes back to one of my key points earlier about automation, where I think with the amount of data that's just out there, it's impossible for us to be able to really know everything and be able to very accurately target. So with a limited budget, as Giovanni was mentioning these days, and this trend forward, especially even after COVID, when brand spends have been limited a little bit, right? It's actually about how do we smartly use our dollars on media so that they actually bring back that sort of ROI for us and be able to drive that ultimate purchase and sort of help your business grow. So that's where automation really comes in, to be able to analyze the data and even serve personalized messaging with your responsive or dynamic ad solutions so that we're able to, as Giovanni said, target the right people at the right time with your right message and get them to convert.
So with 3 minutes left, are there any, what would you like this audience to take away from, everything that we've talked about today? How about everybody give us like one big thing that you actually really staunchly want them to take away?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little greedy, so I'll go with 2.
Okay.
I'll start with, again, back to automation and really using data. Don't collect every single data point because you'll end up being inundated. What you should then do is really be targeted and be smart about the data you collect in order to be able to rely on machine learning and artificial intelligence to sort of drive that success and drive that impact for you. Another thing is sort of on the opposite spectrum of that. When you want to sort of do this education piece, especially around sustainability, what you're trying to do is tell people about your message and be there when people are searching for you. And that's where sort of YouTube comes in with 2 billion monthly active users. And there's only 7 billion people in the world, guys. So really think about how we can get that message to the most people in the most efficient manner.
Veronica?
Yeah. I think what I want people to take away is a little bit less about marketing, but on sustainability. I think in my business, I think every time we do something, when my team brings me something, the first question I ask is this the most sustainable option? And along the way, from our product creation and say we need to do something that's physical, I always ask that question: is it the most sustainable option? And same for our personal lives. And then I think with sustainability, it's also needed that people work together. Not just people, countries should work together, businesses should work together, and because we do need to solve our climate crisis.
I don't know about a good takeaway from my end, but I think what's interesting for us that prompted us to start this business is the intersection of sustainability and business. As I mentioned, maybe we're just being too ambitious, but we're hoping that sustainable businesses will eventually actually replace the old way of doing business. But in that way, you have to walk this tricky balancing act of being true to yourself and your values, and also in a way playing the game, but also not listening too much to other people on, how to play the game just for the sake of it. So, it's only by, in a way, everyone is paying lip service to sustainability, but I'll be honest, we've worked with so many small entrepreneurs on the ground, we don't see a huge wave of consumers rushing to pay extra for sustainable goods. So I think there's still a lot of work to be done to entice consumers to really, put the dollars in this market. And, as Veronica said, I think it's a concerted effort.
Giovanni?
Sure. Circling back on what I mentioned earlier, especially for all brands or platforms that are here today, I would recommend to be brave and test. Have the courage to test and also define clearly your objectives for each and every test, and don't give up too early.
And for me, my two takeaways are this, is that there are two major things impacting our industry. One is digitization, and the second is sustainability. Now, all of your teams who work with you and surround you, they don't know enough. Actually, none of us know enough. And so I would actually just encourage continual learning. And the continual learning comes by letting your teams come to events like this, letting your teams go online and do more learning. And to that end, please go check out motif.org. Blatant advertisement, but also just allow them the time to do that, because the problem is that none of us have enough time, which is the reason why we're always targeting people. So with that, we want to thank you for your time and for being here and for supporting us, and I'd love to thank my panelists and my two Zoom panelists beforehand. Thank you very much. Please give them a great round of applause.